inspect the summary video. This is one of the fold-out ladders. New hardware and connections back into the building. We're getting a little bit of rust buildup, and again that could be from rusty tiers, probably lack of siliconing, or not siliconing, but the lubrication. So we need to get in there and see exactly what's going on with that, and make sure that these things stays closed. And by it being closed, it'll limit some of the rust and the moisture that can get in there. But otherwise, this might need to have those washers removed and new washers put in. And a lot of times what you want to put on there is a vinyl washer to avoid any, if it's not a galvanized washer, or depending on how this was made, this was a galvanized piece. So that's one of the things to investigate when this thing is put up. I did notice that there's some original hardware going back into the building over there, and we need to just swap that out to new, if that's a 1/2-inch bolt, we need to go just one size up on that, a 1/16 up. Or you can, if those are in good order and they're tight, we need to seal that up. We need to get silicone seal around this like we have here. But we just need to find add another bolt, back up with another bolt, keep the originals if they're nice and tight, and just put in another lag screw into the building there. Farscape Engineers Inspector Summary Video. Here we are on what we call the second floor. Farscape has a platform here, and I'm going to tell you some of the issues here. We have a pre-existing structure, pre-existing non-conforming Farscape that's 50 to 75 years old, and here's what we have. Some evidence of maintenance, so we have new hex head bolts and some evidence of original hardware in a connection that's still good. So one way to verify this bolt, load test it, there you get your certification. Or we can render an opinion. These bolts have been swapped out. That's a certification. But if you leave these bolts long enough unchecked and you don't have any silicone in these connections, what's going to happen is you're going to stop building rust like you're building in here. So what we need to do is get all these connections repaired so that there's no rust. Spot prime in there, silicone shut that with 35 to 50 year silicone. All original hardware must be x-rayed. Must be load tested to guarantee and assure that the Farscape is certifiable. Otherwise, you can only render an opinion on such connections. So that's what we have here. So original hardware still here in good order, as you can see. And then we need to also verify inside now that the building's being worked on. We need to verify that there's a plate back there. And another way, if the plate was closed, we can do a pull test on this. But again, you got to seal all of this so that nothing gets in there. So it looks like some evidence of sealing has happened before. And again, you see believe it or not, that's a lot of it is rust, surface rust. Hasn't fully penetrated that, but because that's an original 50 to 75 year old bolt, changing it out, automatic certification, no load test needed. Leaving it here, we need to load test, or I can give you an opinion, but it must come with a disclaimer letter of liability. Okay, so that's easy. We also have to stop accumulation. Look at this. See how all that is accumulated in there? We have to cut that back a little bit so that the water can get off of this. Sometimes when you put a little dam over here, that dam will divert the water 6 to 8 inches away from the building wall. See the rust build up again. So that's, it's not in the connection, but it starts to build up. So you need to have a weep hole, but over there the weep hole's already closed with leaves and trees and rust. So same original hardware, load test it, or take an opinion with a disclaimer. Otherwise, you swap that bolt out. There's no need for a load test. See the rust? These rusts indicate that water's getting in here. These rusty tiers start making these areas suspect. So the next thing we're going to talk about as we keep going up this thing is about these original treads, engravings. These spacers, can't fix them. So they look pretty good here, but they're still rotting from the inside out. And especially on a white Farscape, you're always going to see more evidence of rust on a white fire escape. Evidence of maintenance in the past, so these hex heads are an indication. But we got to get in here and through connection management, every single one of these joints now is going to get sealed. So we want to give this bolt some life. You want to seal it with silicone, and you want to seal that bolt. You want to put caulking all over that bolt so that the nut is not getting anything. So in that corner, you got a new bolt going down, but look, an original bolt going back into the building. We need to take that out and upsize it one. So if it's a 3/8, we got to go a 16 to an 1/8 larger. Same thing with these. In some cases, you can also just, if there's room, you can add an additional hole and just put in a new lag screw. But sometimes it's just faster to take these ones out, and instead of going back in with a 3/8, you got to go back in with a 1/2 inch. Okay. All right. So that's what's happening on here. This fire escape needs to go inside. We need to verify the plate on the inside. Otherwise, we have a little bit of rust. It's starting to formulate right in there. We have rust right in here. And now we're going to start going up. See these tears from the treads? That's an indication that water's coming in from above. But we have evidence that all these bolts were swapped out. So here's the certification. We just have to find out what's going on here. And we also have these two top bolts. Again, these through rods here are notorious for giving way. And as soon as this front flat gives way, there's a trip hazard. So we need to verify that on the next video that we're about to shoot. But we have to start sealing all these areas up. No more rust, no more water can get in here. We need to get separation, spot priming, siliconization, then seal this baby up. Any questions? Fire escape engineers, inspector summary video, part 2. Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video. Here we are, part 3 of this fire escape. We're going to talk about the rails, talk about this release arm, this ladder that folds up and folds out. So one of the things we have to concern ourselves with is these things got to stay lubricated. So what's happening is there's no lubrication here, and so some rust is starting to build up, and that's going to keep this thing from going up or going down. So this whole ladder needs to be sometimes it needs to be totally taken apart, and the washers need to be put back in that have to be at least galvanized, or in some cases you swap in some nylon washers to avoid any rust buildup in any way that would stop this thing from spinning. So that's some of the things we have to look at. This has a release arm here. When you pull this, she folds out and drops, so this must be in an up position at all times. Original, the hardware has all been swapped out on it. You can see new hardware here. This usually is welded and then with a bolt on the back, and that's what you have here. So, but again, if you don't keep this closed, and that's the rain cap and that's the wind cap in the rain, what happens is water gets in these things and they start rusting out, and they start locking this thing up, and it won't come down, it won't go up. So that needs to be tested. Can't right now, you have too many things going on with it. Plenty of evidence of swapping out hardware. I think there's only like 25% left on this fire escape of original hardware, you know, so one is new, one is old kind of thing happening here, you know, 2 old ones, see, and we need to, once you put new connectors here, we need to seal this up with glue. We're trying for certification in lieu of a load test. The grading, as we talked about, some of this grading and some of these treads are starting to show the split. You know, you can see it's starting to split. It rots from the inside. These are components. Grading and treads are components that you can only switch out, or if you want to get another 5, 10, 15 years out of these, which you can with these, is you got to put a piece of flat underneath, and then you got to put these spacers that basically duplicate and back up what's going on with these spacers that are rotting out, and you cannot fix these from the inside out. They're rotting from the inside out. It's impossible to get that rot out, and then it's just not worth it. So you can switch it out to new grading, new treads, galvanized, or you would put in a piece of flat underneath here. You would grab these 2 fronts, you grab these 2 backs, and that way, as long as you keep this flat from falling, that's going to stop any trip hazard issues, and it takes this component and gets another 5, 10 plus years out of it instead of replacing. So again, the majority of these bolts have been swapped out. We're getting some issues with some rust stains are starting to come through. A lot of that is just so that you can rust from above. See all the silicone that happened here? This is indication that the previous activity included siliconization, which is great. Just got to stay on top of it. You got to stop water intrusion. You stop water intrusion, these things, you just keep them painted for their lifetime and they'll always pass. Pressure treated wood doubled up, resting on a rubber roof. That's typical. Now in all new hardware, even though it's welded, there's a backup with a bolt, which is good. But this might be a time to swap out that wood there so that it goes for another 30 years. A lot of times you take the wood and you have the rubber roofers, you rubberize the pressure treated into the rubber roof, and then you screw onto it. So that's another possibility here, is to have the rubber roofer guys come back in and make that part of the rubber roof. There's a catwalk possibility that's missing here. For sure it's missing. It's pre-existing non-conforming, and a city official will have to deem it so and allow it to be grandfathered in as is. Otherwise, you need to have a catwalk system that ties you back in. You can't just wander off this roof because you'll fall down. So I don't know if there was a catwalk here. There probably was. They removed it. But you need to tie back in the catwalk system back into this. Must be a continuous piece all the way to the ground. Okay? But again, original hardware has been swapped out. At least 75% of this fire escape, the original hardware, has been swapped out. The only thing that hasn't been swapped out is you're getting a lot of rust buildup. Look at all that rust buildup on the top. There's 4 bolts that hold this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And since the water has nowhere to go, she just starts eating that bolt. So a lot of times what you want to do is you want to infill that so that the water basically has a way to get out of there, and it stops rotting the top bolts here. So this one will go out because it has a place to drip out, but that one doesn't. So you can see the huge brown. These are all indications that those bolts need to be swapped out. And again, they're original. And again, this is a component. And again, we're worried about the through rod. And this one's flat giving way, which causes a trip hazard. Same thing up there. And so that's what you have to be concerned about, is that these spacers do not allow that. They're rotting from the inside out as we speak. And that's why a flat needs to be underneath. The McNichols clip goes here and holds this one. Put another one here in the middle. Put another one here at the end. And you do both sides, and basically you get some more mileage out of these gratings and not have to swap them out. Catwalk system is missing here, and we're about to do that last stair there. Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video. We have the top part and the final part of the fire escape. What we have is evidence of maintenance. So we got all the hex heads in here. Pretty much, again, 75% of this fire escape was rebolted so far. We have some components which always make up the grading and the treads, which again, these are difficult to do the inside of these, so we're going to have to, in order to get the certification, we're going to have to put the flats underneath with a clip on the front, clip on the back. That, again, the primary reason is to avoid this front ever giving way. So that's the fast way of getting more years out of these gratings. They're doing work here, so they're going to put it all back here. But again, the grading, no rust. You got to make sure. See this one right here? There's some rust that's built up underneath there, and so we need to take the rust out. And so there's no bolt there either. So prior to this going back, or after it goes back, it still has to be taken out because you got to silicone shut it, and you have to have a bolt. No welds. One of the key issues with welds is just that. Welds is the $1 million problem. Welds have to be X-rayed or load tested, but as soon as you create a mechanical fastener or you join a welded connection with a bolt, it's a certification. It's an automatic certification. No X-ray, no load test needed. So whenever possible, put a bolt in it. Silicone shut 100% with 35 to 50 year silicone in all joints. Black screwed back into the building. And again, gratings and treads are components. Those can't be certified, but they can be reinforced to basically make them certified, but they can't be certified as is because they're 50 to 75 years old. Farscape has all welded railings, and again, these are minor structural, so that should one of these pop, it's not going to cause a danger or an issue for, it's not a life safety issue, but supports, bolts, brackets, main supports, those are all important, and those are life safety issues that must be maintained at all times. Your concern on these gratings is also the 4 top bolts on these also. If they have no place to weep, they'll start rotting. And again, this is the only place that, as it comes down to the ground here, there's supposed to be a catwalk. I believe there's evidence that something happened here, but there's supposed to be a complete catwalk that turns you around and feeds you back to this staircase that goes down. I'm going to ask whether or not one was here and was taken away. Otherwise, you cannot just freehand, freestyle, go out there and go out. But I believe... Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like there was something at the bottom of this that's no longer here, because here is the rail that feeds you around. So it can't be on a roof though. You must have 8 inches off grade. So if there's just a rail here but there is no grading, then that must be brought into play. Okay, so that is exactly what's happening here. Got to find out whether the grading was removed, but a catwalk must be complete. Can't step on a roof. Must be 8 inches off grade, go around, feed you back into this fire escape here and off and down to the ground. Any questions? Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video. One last question. The fire escape is going to meet Mass Building Code 1001.3. Must be examined, must be tested or certified. This is just an examination. This is not to be used as a construction control document or a video in any way. That is done during engineer oversight, and that will be determined by the city official. Another issue is that the fire escape is older than 1978, so EPA guidelines apply to anything to do with painting of this fire escape. So that an EPA renovator must touch this fire escape if he's going to paint it one more time and remove any small-scale rust as long as you follow EPA guidelines. Any questions, fire escape engineers? This is Inspector Cisco Meneses, 866-649-0333, 866-649-0333. you.